I'm having an interesting time learning how to make a video so that I can upload it to YouTube. I've made a couple of efforts before which show up on the YouTube page, but they're meaningless. So I'm hoping that this time I've got it right and that it will go through and that the viewer, will be able to see it and understand it. My name is Doug Wallace. I was born in Ogden, Utah in 1929, which makes me going on almost 82 years of age. And as a young Mormon, I did a mission for the church in the British Isles, particularly in England and Wales. I served under the direction of the mission president as a special assistant to him, and also as the mission architect. Shortly after World War II, the church was in kind of bad shape in the British Isles. The buildings, the facilities that they met in were not really up to any kind of good standard. I remember sweeping out bottles at the Elks or Oddfellows Hall early on a Sunday morning so that we could hold the chapel services during that day. And this was in Nuneaton, England. After I was called to serve in the mission office in London, in addition to providing for some 13 local branch chapel improvements or acquisitions, I was asked by the mission president, Stainer Richards, if I would do a design for a temple that could be built in England. Prior to this time, that was late 1951, the church only had temples in the United States, Canada, and Hawaii. It's an indispensable part of the Mormon doctrines and concepts that no one who joins the church can achieve the highest degree of glory, if you will, or achievement unless they have been through a Mormon temple and committed themselves to the different oaths and obligations and commitments that are made in the temple. President Richards reasoned properly that because of the fact that whenever any person joined the church from some foreign country, they would immediately want to immigrate to the United States or to Canada, where they could be able to go through the temple and receive these higher blessings that fulfilled all the commitments that they would want to make as far as the gospel of the Mormon church. I went about that business and secured an option on a piece of property, an old family estate there in London. And with, of course, the approval and guidance of the mission president, I was then sent home from my mission, which was time anyway, where I met in person in the office of the new president of the church, David O. McKay. I presented my plans. He approved them. He sent word to exercise the option to London. Unfortunately, the people that owned the old family estate learned what the Mormons were going to do to their property, and they refused to exercise or honor the option. So later it became necessary for the church to find a location much out of London to the south, which they did eventually build a temple. One of the odd things was that while I was sworn to secrecy about this for a period of maybe 2 years after the return of my mission, it turned out that a temple was going to be built in Bern, Switzerland, and in New Zealand. It turned out that members of the hierarchy of the church, the Quorum of the 12, who had served in those particular missions, heard about the temple building outside of the United States and decided to get on the bandwagon and push and promote their particular area to have one before the London temple got. And I have to before it got built. And I have to admit that there was an awful lot of paperwork and red tape that went on in England over such an issue. After I returned from my mission making that presentation to President McKay, I became very active in the church. I married in the Salt Lake Temple. I had 5 children. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out that great, and it was a real struggle to make through it, looking forward to the hereafter. Ultimately, divorce occurred, and after that time, I had completed law school, and a question had arisen in law school by one of the professors wanting me to write a article for the law review that they were going to publish next year. The title would be, "Was the Mormon Church Violating Civil Rights of Black male members of the church by denying them priesthood rights?" That problem bothered me all my life, and this was a seminal moment when that question was asked. And so later in life, I attempted to make contact with the leadership of the church. But one has to understand the hierarchical order of the church, where the church leaders can sit back and have to answer no questions. So on the second day of April 1976, it was as if Providence had brought a young black man into my life. And I asked him, and he said, "I know what you're going to ask. You're going to ask me if you can ordain me a priest in the church." And I said, "Well, yeah, how did you know?" I said, "Well, the Spirit told me." That procedure was set up, and on the 2nd of April, 1976, that was accomplished. The word of it went all around the world because it had been publicly staged, no question about it. Media was there from all forms, from the written to the television to the audio, and so it flashed around the world that weekend. The result to me was I was excommunicated for insubordination. However, I expected that. I thought that the higher calling was to do what my conscience and the Spirit taught me or told me to do, than to listen any further to the brethren. About 2 years later, after meeting with other individuals who felt the same way as I did, the church reversed itself, and with a lot of propaganda, they let the world know that they were now going to accept black men into the priesthood. 2 years later, they reversed themselves, I say, and from that point on, I have continued to struggle to bring to light some other issues that bother me about the church, and one of those is the fact that they have an ultimate plan of establishing a theocratic government on the land in the United States, taking over the government by default, and building up the kingdom of God on earth, with the church leadership being at the head of it. That bothers me. I would urge anybody who is thinking of joining the Mormon Church to read my book, Under the Mormon Tree, because it discloses all these issues and it divulges a secret organization within the church that acts to protect the integrity and the honor and the image of the church. You need to know that. 1/3 of the people who are quickly converted and baptized into the church to swell its numbers leave the church because they learn that it is not what they had thought it to be. So I urge anybody who would purchase the book, there's a button on this page to push and acquire it, read it, share it with other people, because the word needs to get out. Mormonism is not what it's taught to be by the young, brainwashed, ignorant missionaries. And I gotta admit, although 60 years ago, I was just as equally brainwashed and ignorant. Thank you.